Hey, I wish Justyn Ross the complete best. I hope the dude makes the team. I hope he's an all Pro Bowler. I just feel like we kind of need to pump the brakes on the guy, let him develop. His injuries have caused him to not be able to even develop into a great wide receiver yet. Like, he's got to get time to get there. And I believe practice squad may be it.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to All Chiefed Up. I'm Steve, and I'm here with Mike. Today, we're going to be talking about our UDFA, Justyn Ross. Major hype about Justyn Ross out of Chiefs mini camp, rookie camp, OTAs, all that good stuff. Everybody talking about Justyn Ross, right, Mike?
Yeah, people love him. He came in for the initial rookie camp. Everybody was freaking out over some catches he made. I remember draft might have been after the 7th round of the draft. People were tweeting us asking, hey, do you think the Chiefs may bring in Justyn Ross, UDFA? And I remember tweeting out, I don't know, he's got some crazy medical issues. And then literally 20 minutes later, they signed him.
Right.
So what do I know?
We actually had taken him in a mock draft, early mock draft. We took him in like the 2nd or 3rd round for the Chiefs. So things really changed up. He didn't even get drafted, but we're going to talk more about him. We'll get into all that good stuff, but we'll go ahead and get it started. Justyn Ross, wide receiver from Clemson. He was born December 15th, 1999 in Phoenix City, Alabama. He went to high school in Alabama at Central, which is also in Phoenix City. Had a great high school career. Senior year, he had 37 receptions for 750 yards, 13 touchdowns. He was a 4-star recruit, the number 45 recruit nationally, and he was a number 7 wide receiver. And then he was actually the number 2 wide receiver in Alabama, but he passed on Alabama's offer to go there and decided to go to Clemson, which is very rare. I think there was a stat like no top 5 wide receiver in Alabama had passed on an Alabama offer since like 2003 or something like that.
I'm curious to know who the number 1 wide receiver was that class.
Yeah, no, we'll have to look that up. That'd be cool. If anybody knows, stick it down in the comments. We'd like to know that. So what is he, 6'4", 215 pounds? Is that right?
I'd read that somewhere. Also read on his pro day they got him at 6'3" and some change and about 210. They said he lost a little bit of weight because he had COVID.
Kind of a smack in the face to everybody back in Alabama. He goes to Clemson. I think he had said he was halfway through his visit at Clemson, and he actually called his mom, was like, I know where I want to go. I want to come here. So like he didn't even get the whole visit out before he decided he was going to Clemson. So things did work out for him at Clemson. He was actually there with Trevor Lawrence, correct? So his freshman year, he had 46 receptions, 1,000 yards receiving, and 9 touchdowns. And then just, a little insult to injury on Alabama not being able to keep their in-state wide receiver. The national championship game that year, Justyn Ross actually went off. He had 6 receptions for 153 yards and a touchdown, and some of those catches were just very acrobatic and crazy. And that was the big story. That's how Justyn Ross kind of shot up into stardom, if you will, in college football, was the college football playoffs there, because I think they played Notre Dame first, and he went crazy in that game, had like 150 plus yards, like 3 touchdowns or something, and then tore up Alabama as well.
Yeah, he was looking good, but after that, injuries kind of caught up to him. I think he ended up suffering like some spinal issues. They found some things. He dealt with a broken foot at one point. Just reading some articles on Justyn Ross, and maybe unfairly, but they attributed a lot of his success to just Trevor Lawrence, which that's a little unfair, because I'm with you. I watched some of those games and some of those highlights, and Justyn Ross was making some good catches. It always wasn't just Trevor Lawrence throwing him open or anything. So
right,
a little unfair, I guess.
You have to think. So his freshman year, he was Trevor Lawrence's favorite target over T. Higgins. As we've talked about on this show before, a lot of Chiefs Kingdom has a weird obsession with T. Higgins. They think he's like the greatest thing ever. Was T. Higgins made by Trevor Lawrence, or is he good? So, I mean, it goes both ways. Trevor Lawrence has not proved anything yet in the NFL, so that's yet to be seen, and it's yet to be seen what Justyn Ross can do in the NFL if he were to make this team.
I don't know how it's going to go, to be honest, when it comes to him making the team. We got a huge wide receiver room, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. He ran a 4.63 40. That's what some people clocked him at his Clemson Pro Day. 31.5-inch vert. and a 98-inch broad jump. So it shows that he is somewhat athletic. I think his big knock, and we were talking about it earlier, was his 10-yard split only was a 177. And they say that is very, very bad. Below average split time is a 163 to a 169. And he was well beyond that. So
Right. Well, that's actually something I wrote down in my notes for cons for Justyn Ross. Um, he just has a modest burst, and I don't think it's going to be enough to get separation in the NFL. It could be an issue, but I mean that's something that can be worked on. Some of the other cons before we get into the good stuff, he's not the best run blocker. He doesn't commit to run blocks at all. He's kind of standoffish. He's very indecisive on his yak opportunities. So when he gets the ball, it's like he pulls a little bit of a Demarcus Robinson for a second. It's not the instant run backwards or anything, but it's like he's not just very decisive.
and
And
that's not good when you don't have elite burst.
right. And the last con I wrote down for him is his medicals, which you already talked about.
It's basically all separation issues with Justyn Ross. Getting back to that 177 10-yard split time, that shows you how fast you are off the line. In comparison, I went back and wrote a few. Jonathan Taylor is considered not a super fast running back, but his 10-yard split was a 148. There was only 4 defensive tackles in the 2022 NFL draft that had a slower 10-yard burst than him. And one of them was a 321-pound John Ridgeway. And
That's
he was only a 1.81. So that's only 0.04 seconds slower, which means 321-pound John Ridgeway could stay with Justyn Ross for 10 yards.
And like you were talking about earlier, Mike, we were just talking about football earlier off camera, but that could be, his death knell as far as making this team. Like that could be what stops him from making this team is his lack of burst and not being able to separate and things like that, because we know he has the hands and everything else, and he's the shiny new toy. Like it's everybody's new obsession in Kansas City is like, oh, we've got this diamond in the rough. We got this guy that should have been drafted way early. We got him as a UDFA, and yeah, there's some truth to that, but it's yet to be seen. And I think there's some things other than his medicals that caused Justyn Ross to drop down out of the draft. Like you were saying, I think that burst is probably the big reason.
Well, I mean, let's look back at the 2020 draft. Who was the one polarizing player in round 1 that we all thought was going to be a top 10 pick? And then the further it went, we were projecting him out of the first round. Treylon Burks.
Right.
Too slow. They knocked him like crazy. Treylon Burks ran a 4.4940 compared to Justyn Ross's 4.63. His 10-yard split was a 1.57 compared to a 1.77. And they're talking about Treylon Burks was just abysmally slow and couldn't cut it. So numbers aren't everything.
Yeah.
A lot of it's on the field. But I think Chiefs Kingdom kind of needs to tamper our expectations a little bit. It's easier when you're playing against other rookies in rookie camp, with no pads on.
Right.
To be a little quicker, to make some good catches, to make some flashy plays. I think we're going to find out if Justyn Ross can really make this team come training camp, because I think it may be a whole different story when he starts playing against these elite corners like L'Jarius Sneed and Fenton that like to get up and get physical and don't let him release. Because if he's being bumped at the line, now that 177 becomes atrocious if you're getting hit all the way up the field.
What makes him the shiny new toy? He does have a lot of good things. So we've talked about all the bad things with Justyn Ross, but we haven't talked much about the good stuff. But I mean, his size and length is great. I mean, he's a mismatch for smaller corners. He's very smooth in his route running. He disguises his route intentions very well. He's a crisp route runner. And he can save low and high passes. Like he can get down, get low, catch the ball, make a bad pass, a completion, and he can do the same thing with, overthrows, because he's such a big guy with a lot of length. He can make those catches. And then of course on the sidelines, he's got really good instincts on his footwork. Like he can toe tap, stay in bounds. So I mean, there's lots of good things that I see with Justyn Ross. Great hands, makes all kinds of good catches, acrobatic catches, contested catches. So I mean, there's probably more pros to Justyn Ross than cons, but I mean, that burst, man. What did you see in Justyn Ross' tape that you liked?
Well, the cons are very glaring. They're all speed issues. It's tough to teach speed.
Right.
So that's his problem. When it comes to pros, um, he blocks decently well when he focuses. When he wants to be lazy, he can sure be lazy. I've seen that a few times. Um, but the pros, he's got, pretty good hands. He snatches the ball out of the air. And then the other thing I liked and may play well with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City is when Trevor Lawrence would get in trouble, Justyn Ross kind of reverted back to some playground football, and he was pretty good at getting himself open and getting behind the DBs.
Glad you brought that up. I was going to say the same thing. Like, one thing I liked about Justyn Ross was his backyard football ability. Like, when Trevor Lawrence was in trouble, he kept the play going, and that's what you have to do in KC with Mahomes, because you know that a play's never dead with him. And Justyn Ross has been in that situation before, and he excelled. So I did like that about him. I'm glad you brought that up.
Everybody's favorite time of the video, player comps. Who did you get, Steve? Who did you get?
I think Justyn Ross, like at his best, he could be a Mike Williams from the Chargers. He's got the length and the size. He can make the catches, sticky hands, but Mike Williams is not the fastest as far as burst goes and things like that. So, I mean, they're very similar, but I mean, that's a good comp. I'm not bashing Justyn Ross, because Mike Williams is a good receiver, and I mean, he just signed a huge deal to stay in LA. So, yeah, that's what I see when I see Justyn Ross.
Right. I seen Corey Davis. Corey Davis, I'm pretty sure he was coming out of Western Michigan at the time. He was a big guy. He had decent speed, not great speed. But he never really lived up to the hype in Tennessee. And I think he's with the Jets now. But yeah, I kind of see Corey Davis a little bit. Just I see some similarities in the route running and the hands. Corey Davis can be good. Is he a wide receiver one? I don't know if he's ever going to get there. Probably not. He's just kind of going to be that guy that you can rely on to play 10 years. And I feel like if Justyn Ross does make the team and does translate into a starter, he'll be just that. I don't think he's ever going to be like the spectacular, like all pro wide receiver, like a TO. He's not going to get there. He's going to be like that solid, 40 to 50 catch guy every year that you can look for in the red zone, in my opinion. We talked about another name earlier off air, Laquan Treadwell. He kind of has that vibe.
Yeah.
Where everybody thought Laquan Treadwell was big. He was fast. Laquan Treadwell was actually faster than Justyn Ross, and he was quicker in the 10-yard split, and he still struggled. And
his game didn't translate. His game did not translate to NFL very well.
No, and he was a monster in college. So
yeah, but I mean,
hey, I wish Justyn Ross the complete best. I hope the dude makes the team. I hope he's an all Pro Bowler. I just feel like we kind of need to pump the brakes on the guy, let him develop. His injuries have caused him to not be able to even develop into a great wide receiver yet. Like, he's got to get time to get there. And I believe practice squad may be it. Sad to say that.
It's a possibility.
He's on the line, in my opinion.
So I'm with you. I think Justyn Ross has a very, very high ceiling, and guys, be excited about that. If you want to be excited about it, that's great. I mean, I think we're all excited when they went ahead and signed him, because we had discussed them taking him in the draft. And then, of course, when he was hanging out there as a UDFA, we said the same thing when I was talking to you, Mike, on the phone. I'm like, why don't they grab Justyn Ross? But yeah, like Mike said, might want to pump the brakes a little bit. Don't put too much expectations on the guy. He's coming off some injuries. He's dealing with a lot of stuff, but he does have a good chip on his shoulder, because he knows that he's better than an undrafted free agent. So if he could, work on that burst and just figure out a way to separate, I think he has a good chance of making the team. But don't be surprised if he does not. But that doesn't mean that you won't see him in the next couple of years. Guys, if you learn anything about Justyn Ross, make sure to like this video. Thank you for hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, hitting the bell so you can get some notifications. Also, get down in the comments. Let us know what you think about Justyn Ross, if you think he's going to make the team this year or not, if you think he's just a shiny new toy but might not be able to back it up when the pads come on. Whatever you think about it, put it down in the comments. We'll talk about it. We like to hear everybody's perspective on that. But thanks for joining us. We will be back with another UDFA that we'd like to talk about, and Jerry and Ely, so make sure you tune in for that one. But thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time, guys.
For me, I'm madly in love with you.